Hello, everybody. Welcome into this Tuesday edition of the Pack-A-Day podcast on YouTube. Thanks as always for joining me. I'm Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Few things that I want to get to today, including the injury updates from Monday and a couple notes on Billy Turner and Preston Smith. But let's start right away with the injury updates. First of all, Olivia Reiner does such an amazing job, always breaking down this stuff. She did a great job tweeting out exactly who was back, who was still hurt, who wasn't practicing, all those sorts of things. So just do me a favor, make sure to go and follow her out on Twitter. Again, she's just phenomenal. But let's kind of go over the bad news first, who wasn't practicing, and then kind of go over some of the good news. First of all, the two players that were not practicing, Tyler Ervin and Kevin King. Tyler Ervin, it sounds like it's still his wrist injury, which he played with in the Atlanta game, was still able to return. So hopefully he didn't aggravate anything. We'll kind of get a update as the week goes on as whether or not he's questionable or, doubtful, out, whatever the case may be. But hopefully it's something that he's able to continue to play with. He's been a factor not only as a returner, but as a player that they've used as kind of a gadget player out of the slot. They've used him as a running back a bit. So definitely not a key part of this team, but an integral one, and one that you definitely want in a game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, even if it's just as that returning specialist. We saw what the returning game was like without him a season ago. We don't want to go back to that, so hopefully Tyler's able to play, and hopefully the wrist issue isn't anything major. Kevin King left last game against the Falcons. Around halftime, did not come back. Not great that he wasn't practicing. It's certainly a red flag. We won't know if he's able to play against Tampa until the rest of the week goes on and we get the continued injury updates and injury reports. But this is definitely an injury that could have a major impact on the game with the Buccaneers. I know that Godwin and Mike Evans and Tom Brady are still kind of getting, a rhythm between each other. Godwin and Evans have both been banged up a bit. Evans looked like he was maybe at like 60 to 70% this past week. So they're not clicking on all cylinders as I expect them to as the season progresses and they kind of get fully ingrained in that offense together. But even still, Kevin King is the type of corner that you want matched up with Godwin and Mike Evans and those bigger, more physical wide receivers. He's made for those type of matchups. So if he's not able to go, that's definitely a position where whether, Shannon plays more on the outside or if he stays in the slot, whether Josh Jackson or Kadar Hallman play more on the outside, that would be a major question mark if Kevin King's not able to go. So mark that as 1A on your list this week as you're monitoring the injury reports as to whether or not King's able to go in this game. I know there's some of you who feel like Kevin King's just a meh or worse corner. It's not the case. He does have some up and down moments. He has some up and down games. Corner's really freaking hard to play in this league against this tremendous group of wide receivers that you go against game in and game out every single week. And Kevin King wins more than he loses. So it's definitely still a player that you want out there on Sundays, especially against a team as talented as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the wide receiver position. Let's move to the good news, though. Devonte Adams, Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary, Mercedes Lewis all either continued to practice or returned to practice on Monday, which is massively good news. I've said this numerous times. The entire defense revolves around what Kenny Clark does in the interior of that defense. Edge rushers have it easier because he's collapsing pockets from the inside. The linebackers have it easier because he's eating blocks right in front of them. The corners and safeties have it easier because he's penetrating from the middle and making the quarterback get rid of the ball a little bit quicker. So everyone benefits from Kenny Clark being in the lineup. Devonte Adams, I don't need to tell you how important he is. I know Green Bay's won every game without him, but you still want him as an option. If you're going into a game where Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, there could certainly be some points on the board this coming Sunday. You want your full disposal of weapons, and that includes 1A. Devonte Adams. Would be amazing to have him back. You don't want to go into this game with another MVS, Malik Taylor, Darius Shepard sort of situation. So hopefully Adams is able to make his way back, be that number one guy. Let MVS be the number two. Still working those tight ends and running backs quite a bit. It just gives Matt LaFleur so many more options. We've already seen Rashawn Gary start to make more of an impact prior to his injury that allowed him, or I guess didn't allow him to play against the Falcons. I think you want to start scaling back some of those snaps from, Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith. They're playing like 90% of the snaps. You want to be able to get them off the field more, and I think you want to start seeing more of Rashawn Gary just to keep everyone fresh and I think everyone benefits in that situation. And then Mercedes Lewis, I thought Matt LaFleur did a great job, using Rick Wagner as kind of that tight end. They even tried to sneak him out for a pass. But you want Mercedes Lewis back, your best pass blocker, your best run blocker at tight end. He makes Aaron Jones and Aaron Rodgers better because of his blocking ability. And now we've seen him make some plays. He went up and got the touchdown pass a couple weeks ago. This is just a very, very good player in this Matt LaFleur offense. So if they're able to get Adams, Clark, Gary, and Lewis all back against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that's a huge win for the Packers. And then the cherry on top, the icing on the sundae, both Equanimeous St. Brown and Kamal Martin practiced. They were on IR. They still remain on IR. This basically opens up a 3-week window where they can return them now if they want. They have the roster spots available, but they have 3 weeks to do so. So sometime in the next 3 weeks, EQ and Kamal Martin are going to be added to the active roster. It could be as early as this week. And these are not positions, that, aren't without injury right now. These are two players who could make an impact right now if they're able to do so and if they're healthy enough to do so. Green Bay will be cautious in bringing them back, but Kamal Martin with, Christian Kirksey out right now, make no mistake about it, Kamal Martin was the starter at inside linebacker. Who knows what would have happened with Chris Barnes. This was Kamal Martin's spot. He was the best rookie in all of training camp and all the practices. He was going to be the guy that was really going to be the standout of this rookie class, in my opinion, based off of what we saw in training camp. He was going to be the starter alongside Christian Kirksey. Now Kirksey's out. It'll be really interesting to see if he is healthy, how they rotate Barnes and Summers and Kamal Martin, but he could be a major player to get back, and I still think he has a lot to give to the Packers team this season. Again, he was the rookie I was most excited about just based off of training camp and practices prior to the season and prior to his injury, so that would be great news. And then Equanimeous St. Brown, he's their best slot receiver right now. You talk about Adams and MVS playing, more on the outside. Those are your top two right now with EQ in the slot. That's your best trio of wide receivers. He would immediately go above Darius Shepard and Malik Taylor. And some of those plays where we've been able to see, Allen Lazard get in the flat or out in space and with some room to run, Equanimeous St. Brown has the speed to start making some of those plays really tick. He still has a ways to go in his growth as an overall wide receiver, but Matt LaFleur can find ways to really use Equanimeous St. Brown in creative ways, and I'm so excited to see that, and I think he has a lot to add to this wide receiver group. Again, who knows if either of them are able to play this week, but I'm excited to find out, and I'm excited that both of them are back practicing. A couple other quick notes today that I wanted to get into. I know I labeled Preston Smith as my most disappointing Packer up until this point. If you haven't checked out that episode, make sure to go back and watch it. But, I've received a few responses. Some have stated that he's overweight. I don't know if that's the case. I don't get to weigh him in. Others have stated that it's due to Kenny Clark not being in, which there's some truth to that. Again, I just mentioned how Kenny Clark makes everyone better. But at the same token, Preston's had a lot of one-on-ones that he just hasn't able to win like he was able to win a season ago. And then other people have said, well, it's just because he's dropping into coverage so much. But if you take a close look at the stats, in 2019, he dropped back into coverage, this is per Pro Football Focus, on 45 out of 242 snaps. That's 18.6% of the snaps that he dropped back into coverage in 2019 through the first 4 games. In 2020 through 4 games, he dropped back on 44 snaps, one less than in 2019, at a slightly higher ratio, 19.7%. So 18.6% of the time he was dropping back in 2019, 19.7% in 2020. The difference is minimal, and if you want to take it one step further, in both seasons through 4 games, he had 106 pass rush attempts in both seasons, but the pass rush numbers are drastically down. He had about 3.4 pressures per game in 2019 total. He's only averaging 1.25 in 2020 so far. So a huge difference, and this is the time where Preston Smith, after the bye, you want to see him get back to being what he was able to do, or doing what he was able to do a season ago. Be more disruptive, be a really strong pass rusher for this Packers defense. Hopefully, again, with Rashawn coming back, you can maybe scale back some of those snaps. I think that can help everyone, but to anyone that's just saying, it's because he's dropping back in coverage so much, that is not the case. This is a situation where he's had the same amount of attempts rushing the passer, and simply put, the production has not been there. On a good news standpoint, Billy Turner. somebody that I had serious questions about as to whether or not he was going to be able to survive at right tackle after having some struggles at right guard, especially with speed a season ago. And when I went back and watched tape on Billy Turner at Denver, he graded much better at guard than he did at tackle, really struggled with speed around the edge. Well, against the Saints, he started a little bit rusty through the first couple drives and then settled down and played great the rest of that game and was fantastic against the Falcons. In fact, Paul Brettel posted this. I'm not sure where he got the numbers. It looked like it was an ESPN or Next Gen Stats type of thing, but he has the highest win rate among offensive tackles that have at least 75 snaps so far this season. So not Teron Armstead, Ryan Ramczyk, David Bakhtiari, Andrew Whitworth, Trent Williams, none of those guys. Billy Turner, minimum 75 snaps, the best win rate among offensive tackles. So a really crazy number. He's off to a really great start. He hasn't faced the speed rushers yet, which is what really gave him trouble. Go back and watch D Ford against Billy Turner back when he was a right tackle for Denver, and Ford just annihilated him. He struggles more with speed in that quick first step. He hasn't played against those type of players. Atlanta just doesn't have the pass rushers to begin with. Dante Fowler, again, these are more technical type rushers. Turner can hang with them. He saw a little bit of Cam Jordan, who's really fantastic, but again, not that speed rusher. So we'll see if he can continue this, but a really nice start to the season for Billy Turner. That does it for me. Make sure to check out Jake and Ross on the all-new Pack-A-Day podcast today. I'll see you back here tomorrow, and in the meantime, go Pack Go.